that's the magic of our project, is now people are seeing their stories that they create for their IP they own in these larger media expressions, like the comic and the trailer and the show and all this stuff. It's really, it really changes the relationship between like studio and fan. It's sort of leveled it out, and we both just constantly feed each other with this creative energy.
And you have a commercial right as an owner to that character. So for example, if we use a scene that you invent or a story that you invent, we've now made your character more famous, and you can create merch to kind of capitalize on that fame.
Hey, welcome back everybody to Altcoin Daily. My name is Aaron. Today I am joined by two co-founders of a project called Forgotten Runes Wizards Cult. It's the next great fantasy franchise built on Web3. So we're talking NFTs, animation, physical comic books, a suite of video games, and most importantly, the characters you own and control if you're a token holder, if you own the NFTs. Elf, Dotta, how are you guys doing today?
I'm great.
Great. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much for coming on. Was that a good introduction to what your project is? Or for the folks at home, what is Forgotten Runes Wizards Cult?
You covered the whole thing. I think we can end it there. No, it's it's a fantasy franchise built on Web3. And it's basically different from your average legacy franchise in that we have totally decentralized the IP ownership and even the creative development of a lot of the IP. That's it in a nutshell.
Okay.
Yeah. With Forgotten Runes, the key idea is that you own the character in your token. And so we are building a mainline story thread through our television show, comic book, and the game. But the individual token holders, they own a commercial right to their character. And that's one of the things that makes our community stand out, is just how prolific they are in both like creating and telling stories about their character, creating artwork, telling poems, getting tattoos, murals. Just every day, everyone is creating stories about their character because of, well, they're both like creatively and economically aligned to do so.
Okay, interesting. Before we get too in the weeds on the project, love to hear more about you both. What is your background, both professionally and also how'd you get into crypto in general or Web3?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I've been working in animation and video games for over 10 years. And one of the things that I always wanted to do during that time was have my own project, like have my own TV show or my own comic or my own game. I've always been very entrepreneurial in that. And I've gotten pretty close a few times. I got a pilot on Nickelodeon, Google VR, bought a 3-episode miniseries from me. But none of them have risen to the level as Forgotten Runes. And it's amazing to me that my door into this has been blockchain.
Yeah. And for myself, my background is software engineering by trade, but founded a couple of startups before this. I deployed one of the first NFTs in April of 2018, which is just a couple months after Punks. And yeah, I've been in crypto for a long time. So around this, a little over a year ago, both Elf and myself had both been kind of working in NFTs. So we worked together on some of the early iPhone games, maybe 10 or 12 years ago. So we released some of the early iPad games and had some success there.
Flappy Birds.
Yeah. And then maybe about 18 months ago, I'd been doing some sort of technical NFTs that nobody really cared about. And Elf was doing some gorgeous one-of-ones that were kind of under-recognized. And so we decided to sort of get the band back together again and team up, and we created Forgotten Runes.
Cool. And Forgotten Runes, the actual idea or the creation of it, that happened in 2021?
Yeah, that's right.
Cool.
Yeah, from the time we conceptualized it to when we launched was only maybe around 30 days. But we've worked together for 10 years, which is why that was possible.
Cool.
It's, and in some sense, it's something we've been thinking about forever, right? Because I grew up we grew up playing Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering and Final Fantasy VII. And it's like, we're trying to recreate that feeling of like opening a fresh pack of Magic cards and like having pizza with your friends and playing Dungeons and Dragons, but like bringing that into Web3.
This is not just a game. This is not just an animation. This is a whole franchise, whole metaverse, if you will. Can you explain the thought process for not just doing one thing like a game, but like creating the whole package?
Yeah, it's, if you're going to do a franchise, it's important to have all these different media expressions of it. We actually have this term in our company called speedrunning a franchise. And we just think that in order to really grow Forgotten Runes, it's got to go beyond just the niche crypto community. And then like even within crypto, the NFT community is even more niche. And so we really think our IP just, we think it has inherent broad appeal, and we want to show the world what it is. And, like I think one of my favorite things we've done so far is this animated trailer wherein we had actually Christian Nairn, who plays Hodor on Game of Thrones. He narrated it for us. It was animated by this amazing studio in Los Angeles called Titmouse.
It is not the wizards who forgot the runes. It's the rest of the world.
And it's just a beautiful piece, if I do say so myself. And that trailer has really traveled far, and it's, it'll go beyond things like that, really go beyond a niche NFT audience. So go ahead, Dotta.
Yeah, and I think that, like, one of the things we'll talk about is the television show, right? We've got Derek Kolstad, the creator of John Wick, who's writing the show for us. We've got Titmouse, who's a fantastic animation studio. We're doing a video game, and then we have all these not even ambitions, but just works in progress to kind of get the word for Forgotten Runes out into the world. And so some of the things, sometimes people will say to us, they're like, oh, you're just a Web2 project wrapped in Web3. And I think that is not true at all. One, if you look at our tokenomics, which we can dive into, we have tokenomics built into Wizards that no one has ever done before. We have plenty of like on-chain games coming up and lots of interesting Web3 dynamics. And really, like, NFTs as they exist have really, punks have been around for a while, but NFTs as the current form have really only existed for about a year. And so, like, what we are creating is we're defining what Web3 can be. And there's no greater billboard for the token collection than like a television show that you can watch on Netflix, right? People don't realize that, for example, Netflix has 220 million subscribers, right? There's probably not a million people that have an NFT in their wallet. And so this idea that you could get a television show that's AAA, high quality, that draws all of its characters from the collection, it doesn't seem Web3 because no other Web3 project has figured it out yet.
Mm-hmm. And before we get into what's in the pipeline in the short term, or even what this is going to look like in the far future, if somebody from our audience went to your site right now, links are in the description, and they wanted to be part of this thing, I saw that the main NFT characters are available on the marketplace on OpenSea. But like, what can people access on your site right now if they want to join the team?
If they want to join our project, we have two different tiers, I guess you could say, of character tokens. We have the wizards and we have warriors. The wizards are a little more elite. They were the first character drop we did. The token supply is much lower. But the warriors, I would say, are a very good entry point for people who want to come in. They're quite affordable, and they have mostly all the same functionality and privileges as a wizard, mostly, not all. But yeah, I would say buy a warrior. That's a really good place to start. And I would say if you buy a character token, the first thing you should do is start thinking about the lore, the story of your character, because that's what our project is all about. We used to talk a lot about how we want NFTs to be more than a standard crypto token. They're not a Dogecoin. They're not a Bitcoin. These NFTs, they have artwork and they have stories. And what's great about an NFT is you as the owner are in control of that NFT's destiny. You can create lore and more art around it to raise its profile. So yeah, I mean, we have a phrase in our community called "put thy rune on the door." It just means put your mark on the world. It means let your presence be known on the blockchain. And so yeah, buy a warrior, create a story around it, join our community, role play. There's so many fun things you can do with our characters.
That's pretty interesting. I don't think most people realize. So if they had the token, they could help craft the lore of that character.
Yeah, and one of the key principles of our community is this phrase lore, not floor, right? So the floor being kind of defined as like the cheapest one on the market, right? If you buy any item in the collection, if the floor goes up, you make money, right? And most NFT communities, like, you know, a Dogecoin or a Bitcoin, have no sort of like cohesion other than they all love the floor price and they're watching that all the time, right? Whereas for our community, we truly believe that we're building a global brand, a sort of like open source Lord of the Rings, if you will, where everyone owns their individual character. And so it's really about like building up your character that make it more, let's say, rare and more valuable, not just the fact that it's like, oh, it has the golden weapon or something. And so yeah, lore not floor means like every individual character and the story that you tell about it makes it more important than this like arbitrary floor value.
We actually have a core tool in our community. It's called the Book of Lore. It's a digital book that lives on our website. And when you open the book and you connect your wallet, if you've got a Forgotten Runes character in it, then that gives you right access to create stories about your character. And so currently we've got like almost 3,000 lore entries in our book around the characters that people own.
And as you guys are creating the comic books and the future iterations of the comic books and the animation, that lore could make it in?
Exactly. Yes, that's the magic of our project, is now people are seeing their stories that they create for their IP they own in these larger media expressions, like the comic and the trailer and the show and all this stuff. It's really cool. It really changes the relationship between like studio and fan. It's sort of leveled it out, and we both just constantly feed each other with this creative energy.
And you have a commercial right as an owner to that character. So for example, if we use a scene that you invent or a story that you invent, we've now made your character more famous, and you can create merch to kind of capitalize on that fame. But at the same time, we're also working with our legal counsel. We think we found a system whereby we can pay our token holders for the commercial rights that they have in a way that doesn't violate US securities laws. So we'll have more details on that within a little bit. But the basic idea is that, like, because you have a commercial right to your characters and actually you're building up that character through your own efforts, there's a way that we can actually license that intellectual property that you're creating from you. And pay you in a way that, like, it's not like just a dividend just for owning the token, but it's a way that you could potentially earn revenue as a licensee of the rights in your token in a way that isn't possible with other projects.
That's pretty cool. And then the game associated with this is an MMORPG. Is that available for gameplay now? Or can you take us through what is out right now and then what's coming in the short term, say within 2023?
Yeah. So the game isn't out quite yet. The game is going to, yeah, like you said, it's an MMORPG. It's sort of like World of Warcraft meets Stardew Valley, right? So there's this like social loop, there's a harvesting and crafting loop, and you can own land, for example, and you'll be able to build infrastructure on that land, and you can harvest resources there and then craft and customize. And then of course, like a traditional like questing, battling, you party up and go fight monsters and earn loot loop as well. So we had a demo of the game at our party at NFT NYC over the summer. We'll start to have some internal alphas playable this fall with kind of like the final version should be live in Q1 of next year. And so this game, one of the key ideas behind this game is that every item is an NFT and every resource is a token. So that means everything from kind of the commonest wooden sword to the most valuable diamond armor, you can put all that on chain, right? And one of the key ideas here is that it's sort of a lot of the crypto games you've seen so far, they're kind of like yield farms with pretty graphics on top. And we're trying to build a fun first game. We're trying to build a game that like harkens back to Ultima Online and some of these early like MMOs, early EverQuest that we really love to play, but then they just sort of had, this problem. Well, I don't have to sell crypto ownership and gaming to you, but the idea is that it's a fun first game where it's backed by crypto ownership. So that will be coming out. There's about 40 people working on that full time from Bisonic Games, and that should be out in Q1 of next year.
Excellent. And then the comics and the animation, where's that at?
We have printed issue 0. It's physically printed. We've got I think 100,000 copies out there now. That is fully available. We are currently working on issue number 1 right now. I've been seeing the artwork that our artist has been turning in. It's freaking amazing. But the comic series is going to be at the very least a 10-issue series. And then, yeah, I think Dotta touched on this earlier, but we have got a string of mini games in the works as we speak.
So, and then for the show, we partnered up with Derek Kolstad. So if you don't know Derek, you probably know the movies that he's made, which is John Wick. So John Wick was a franchise invented from his own mind. It wasn't a book first, and the movies were very successful. So the first movie did 100 million, the second did 200 million, the third movie did about 300 million. And typically franchises don't get better over time, whereas Derek is so good that they did. He also did the show Nobody, starring Bob Odenkirk, which is on Netflix. And so he's already working on another video game based show for Netflix. And so, yeah, Derek is just so good. If you ever get a chance to listen to him, the man is like a jazz musician of storytelling. And so he even had worked on, he'd started in on a Dungeons and Dragons show for a couple of years back, but that ended up getting, canceled overall. But he's so good, and he's so aligned with us in terms of building a television show that is around hope. This idea that there is good in the world, there's evil in the world, and what you do matters. And you can have an effect by putting your rune on the door, by putting your mark on the world and making it a better place. And so, yeah, so he has already written a first draft of the pilot. And he is, we're working on basically what they call a show Bible. So that's sort of almost like a startup pitch deck for a show. So that's where that is. We haven't picked a distributor yet, or they haven't picked us, but the idea is that we would try to sell the show to Netflix, Amazon, HBO Go. That hasn't happened yet. It takes a little bit more development time. And then of course, on the development side, we have Titmouse. So Titmouse has done Marvel comics. They've done Star Wars comics. They did Big Mouth, Midnight Gospel, Vox Machina. So we know that the show is going to be just AAA level.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the John Wick guy and, your guys' experience and everything sounds exciting. It is hard to get a show picked up. And, it sounds, like you have a good chance. But when you look out in the crypto Web3 space today, what are the good, I guess, the competitive people in your lane, I guess the crypto gaming, or just the lore in general? Is there anybody worth talking about, or is it still pretty early?
I love the Loot project and the Loot verse in general. So I think that Loot has maybe the challenge of not having an overarching narrative in the same way that Forgotten Runes does. But I think that what they don't have an overall narrative, they've made up in terms of just really strong teams that are building in a lot of different areas. So I think that they're doing a really good job. I've heard good things about Nuclear Nerds, Jenkins the Valet, in terms of other storytelling, but truth be told, I haven't had a lot of time to dig into them. I don't know if you have anything to add, Elf.
Yeah, it's funny when you become a project founder and dev, you have no time to look at other.
Yeah, you lose your alpha. Yeah.
But I don't know. I like Tiger Bob. I bought 2 of those the other day, just impulsively. But yeah, for me, it's just it's anything that concentrates more on the art and story and not just rarity metrics and floor price. I think that because that's what NFTs are. That's what distinguishes them from a standard crypto token.
And you guys are building on Ethereum, correct? Is there what made you go with Ethereum as opposed to maybe Solana or something else?
I mean, well, when we launched last summer, I don't think there was much of an NFT meta on Solana. I think really L1 is the chain where punks are. And so I think that as much as Solana has had a renaissance in terms of volume, ultimately, I still think the total value locked and the prestige is still on ETH L1. As the technology gets better for L2s, of course, the gas cost is too high to do something like gaming on L1 in the near term. So, we're looking at a couple of chains. I think my first choice for the chain for the game would be Starknet, but it's not quite ready. And so, there's a lot of total value locked on Arbitrum. People have been having a good experience there. So I think Arbitrum might be a good kind of half measure for the moment.
Are you guys Ethereum investors as well? Do you hold a little bit of Ethereum?
I certainly am.
I definitely have ETH. I mean, I think that we're clearly in the buy zone now if you have like a 5 to 10 year scope, right? Like, what are the chances that it goes down 50%, right? Like maybe, right? Like maybe it's 25%. And like, but what are the chances that it goes up like 50%, like much higher from here if your time scale is out? The Ethereum Foundation and the teams behind there, I think the merge was a perfect example of just like how good they are and how serious they are about moving the protocol forward. And roll-ups are like extremely exciting, and really take a lot of air out of the room in terms of alternate L1s. It's very, very hard to create a blockchain as robust as Ethereum is to get to this point. And so, last year was the meta of alt L1s, right? We had Avalanche and Polygon and all these other L1s, and roll-ups will give you kind of the benefit of being on a new chain, but like kind of the security backed by ETH. It just seems like Cosmos is of course quite interesting insofar as they've been built to have like side chains from the beginning, but it just seems to me that like rollups are going to provide that same sort of functionality to ETH01. All the liquidity is there. I just don't see not being bullish on ETH right now.
Nice. Your expertise are, just coming through the screen, man. I love it. I can tell you're into it.
I love it.
And ETH price prediction in the next 10 years, you think ETH could get over 20K?
10 years? Yeah, sure. Why not?
10 years for sure. Yeah,
Oh.
of course. Like, especially if it's deflationary.
Yeah. Cool. So getting back to Forgotten Runes, and do we call the project Forgotten Runes or Forgotten Runes Wizards Cult?
So the Wizards Cult would be like the core Wizards collection. I do think the Forgotten Runes Wizards Cult is the overarching brand for sure. But we also call it Forgotten Runes all the time because we have wizards, warriors, beasts spawn, the world,
Symbols,
artifacts.
ponies.
Yeah.
It's the whole world. But yeah, the Wizards Cult is the core collection.
Cool. So thinking, because you guys have a lot of things coming in the pipeline over the next year, but thinking 5 years into the future, what does success look like for Forgotten Runes?
I'm glad you said that. I want to communicate one thing. We are in a bear market now, as everybody knows, and it's actually kind of exciting for us because I'm feeling less pressure than I did in the bull market. We are building all the way through this thing. We've got enough runway to get comfortably to the next bull, and we're just building our little tails off. So in the next, I don't know, 5 to 10 years, we're speed running the franchise. It's the show, it's the multiple games, the comics. We might even have a few toys in the works. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that now.
No, it's fine.
But yeah, I mean, expect like the next like Lord of the Rings that was birthed on Web3.
I also think integration with all of the metaverses. So we were one of the first projects to release 2D sprite sheets and walk cycles, and we integrated with Web3 world. We're also working on basically creating 3D models for the entire collection. So that's 10,000 wizards, 16,000 warriors. It's actually quite difficult.
Open world 3D meta we're going to be in.
Yeah.
I love it.
Actually, we do have a really fun Halloween event coming up on Halloween this year. And I don't know how much we're supposed to say about it, but it's going to bring in other communities, other NFT communities, not just Wizards and Warriors, but we're extending an invitation to, I guess, all the blue chips. Dotta, I don't know how you want to deliver.
Yeah, one of the things that we like to do for Halloween is we have token events that involve risk. So last year, for example, we airdropped a Sacred Flame to a bunch of holders, and you could burn your wizard with a Sacred Flame. And in 9 out of 10 cases, you were rewarded with a soul of your wizard, which is this ghoulish version. But in 1 out of 10 cases, your wizard was destroyed and you were returned an undesirable, which might have been a pile of bones or ash or something like that. And so, you basically had folks putting quite a lot of value on the line at the time to risk it getting these forgotten souls. And so we love that idea that you're coming together, you're putting something up at risk, but then you have this like really sweet reward. And so we'll be repeating that sort of mechanic this year for Halloween. And then following that, we've got basically another pretty broad airdrop coming. We're working on a play to earn game that will have an airdrop for everyone who holds a wizard and a warrior, and as well as maybe some partner communities there. So that's coming up before the end of the year.
Very exciting. I encourage our audience, check out the website, follow these guys, links down below. Final thoughts for the Altcoin Daily audience.
Put your rune on the door.
Yeah, I think if the cult asks for one thing, it's just to create in earnest, right? And so coming to the Forgotten Runes project is sort of an effort in self-expression, right? When you buy a wizard, it's not that you just like keep it in your wallet. It's this active participation in our community, in storytelling, and just in like creating in earnest, like leaving your mark on the world.
I love it. Thank you both for coming on today. I think this project's pretty cool. Look forward to keeping it on our radar.
Thank you.
Thank you.